Hello, all. Welcome to the first curiosity conversation, um, which is going to be on self-connection for embracing curiosity, especially in the context of our rapidly, significantly, and globally changing business environment. I am Shirin Köprücü, the curiosity coach, joining from Maryland. And with me here today is Leah Landry, who is a Strozzi Institute for Somatics trained professional coach. Thank you for being here with me today, Leah.
Thanks for having me.
Together, we will talk about the importance of self-connection and how somatics can help with self-connection. And then following our 10 to 12 minute chat here, we will engage with our attendees to continue on our conversations with them and also take them through an activity to increase our self-connectedness, explore our self-connectedness. And with that, let me ask you, Leah, self-connectedness for me means that I show up as a non-judgmental, highly imaginary, and quite strategic coach. That's where I find most self-connectedness. I was curious how you define self-connectedness. What
Yeah,
does it mean to you?
that's great because I took a different approach, I think, to self-connectedness. I I would have said 3 years ago that self-connectedness for me was when I was really productive, maybe, and very clear in my thoughts and kind of knew where I was going and what I was doing. But once I was introduced to somatics, which is a theory of change where we integrate our brains and bodies so we can be in more choice about how we're responding under pressure. Once I started somatics, I started to realize I didn't know that I had a body. I kind of felt like I was a brain floating around. And the more I started to do these somatic practices, the more I realized that my body was trying to give me all this information that I didn't know how to interpret. And so now I would say I define self-connectedness as, am I in the present moment? Can I feel my feet on the ground? Do I know where I'm breathing? Not even, doesn't even have to be deep breaths, but like, am I aware of how my breath is moving? And those are all signs to me that I am connected with myself and I'm really grounded and present in what's happening in front of me.
Wow, wow. What may I ask? So it's like opening up the channels for more information in
Yeah,
our bodies.
exactly. Yeah, we're opening up those channels, becoming more aware of what the sensations and emotions are that are present, what they're trying to communicate with us. And then the third piece is noticing, what is our tendency under those different emotions, our tendency to move or behave. So for me, when I'm under a lot of pressure, I've now learned that my move is to go away and to be like, oh, this is too much. I'm going to move away from this. And so the more I do somatics, the more I can catch that pattern and then be in
Mhm.
choice. Like, actually, this is maybe a stressful situation, but it's worth it for me to lean in to keep staying present and grounded and self-connected.
How so clearly, one, you noticed the importance of self-connection in your life, and then two, you found great insight in the somatics field. What are a couple of practices that you would like to mention here that can help, that are rooted in some, that come from the somatics field and that people can learn about after listening to this chat?
Yeah. I mean, there's tons of somatic practices, and somatics has a really long lineage too. There's been many different fields. I think Aikido, which is a peaceful martial art, has been integrated into this. Qigong has been integrated into the lineage I've been taught, um, along with other psychodynamic theories. So there's many different streams you could go into to do these different kinds of somatic practices. So for me, every day I do a centering somatic practice, a rowing practice, and a Jokata practice, which is a derivative from Aikido. I would say for folks that are just getting started, though, there can be even simpler practices of, can I take 2 deep breaths and feel my feet on the ground? Or, can I relax my jaw? Can I even just invite the tissues right here to relax? Yeah. Um, so even simple physical touch that feels good, or even just listening to what are the impulses our body is telling us, like, oh, I really want to roll my shoulders right now, or oh, I really want to stretch wide, kind of listening to those impulses can also be a good indicator of a somatic practice. And the other cool somatic practice I've begun is singing and group singing, and you don't have to be good at it at all, but singing and dancing can also be really helpful ways to reconnect with what's going on in our bodies.
Wow, I would have never thought of all this if I hadn't talked with you. It sounds like really be in touch with not only minds, but the rest of our bodies.
Mhm.
And just even listening to what might feel good.
Yeah,
Because like rolling the shoulders or touching where it's not feeling so well.
yeah, I love that part of somatics too. It doesn't see us as broken or that we need to be fixed. It's more about we're already whole beings and we have longings, and sometimes our current patterns are getting in the way of those longings. So I think our world is really shaping us to be on computers, to not connect with the rest of our bodies. And the more we can lean into what our body is telling us, I think the more powerful we can be, the more satisfied we can be, the more impactful we can be.
Yeah, yeah. And I'd love to get more about how the world is changing and what the importance of this topic in a changing world is. Yet I thought the singing part was so interesting. Is there anything you can share with us how it's helpful, what you have learned, seen in science about it, and what your experience with it is?
Singing in particular or somatics generally?
Singing in particular.
So in my training for somatics, we did group singing, and we had a
Hmm.
couple of people that led the songs, and they did it in the civil rights style. There's, a long history of resistance around singing movements, and in the civil rights style, they had a saying that was, if you're bad at singing, sing louder. So there's this, it's not about how you sound, but more about making these vibrations in your body and then also coordinating with other people to make vibrations together as a practice of how do we work in coordination with other people? How do we align our energies and make sure that we can be uh, feeling for one another and not always having to talk it out or think it out together? And that can be huge in today's world, right? Have you had that experience of a partnership where you really just get each other? You're so in sync that you don't have to say something, it just a look or just a movement will communicate that with the other person. I think singing is a way to cultivate that practice with more and more people.
Yeah, it almost sounds like one raising energy,
Mhm.
two starting to resonate together and possibly amplifying that energy. And I can also only see a value in moments when we don't feel we have a voice. Clearly, you're implying that too, but it showed up for me as well. Anytime we want to create more influence or participate more, perhaps we prepare by singing.
Yeah, absolutely. And somatics also talks about how our different identities are shape us in different ways in the communities we live in right now. So I think for people that have been socialized as women, it can be very hard to own your voice, and for folks with other marginalized identities. So singing can be a really good practice for that, of how do we take up that space? How do we own it, resonate, really use our voices to make an impact on other people?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
Sharon, for you, what are the practices you have to reconnect with yourself when you're feeling disconnected?
Ooh, that's a good question. So with coach training, I too have gotten into a lot of mindfulness practices for sure. And also re learned to appreciate my prior dance and theater training and activity. Definitely the coach training got me back in touch with the other wisdom centers in our bodies than our minds.
Mm-hmm. A dance background, that could be so helpful, I'm sure, to help integrate your mind and body.
For sure. Yes, for sure. Similar to singing, I think that's possibly why I got so interested immediately. And last but not least, all of this then leads to self-connection. What is the importance of self-connection, do you think, in the near future, in the near and far future?
Mm. Well, you know, for when I started learning about somatics, it was because I'd taken this new job and I was so stressed at this job. I was reliving every conversation. I couldn't make real connections. I couldn't take initiative. And the more I could feel into my body and feel for what was right, as opposed to think through what was right, the easier it became. I ended up making really deep relationships. I was able to take initiative and lead these new trainings at the organization, disagree with the CEO in front of the whole leadership team. I could really feel myself shifting my behavior patterns. And I feel like that is so pivotal for the moment that we're in right now, being able to um, feel for what's right and maybe make new movements, new actions that we're not used to, so that we can create a more thriving, better world where everyone can really have access to the resources they need. And that feels exciting to me. It's like, how do we make real change? The more we get connected to ourselves, the easier that's going to be.
Yeah, it's almost like you're inviting us to dance with change. I always feel like change is a crazy dancer, and only if we also show up as a dance partner can we dance in sync and in honor of ourselves, honoring ourselves as well. Thank you
Mhm.
very much, Leah, for this conversation,
Thank you. This was great.
for this chat. It's a brief chat. I wish we had more time and look forward to continuing our chat with our attendees as a conversation.